proposal. What you have registered for and are attending is a joint meeting between the Raleigh-Durham Airport and the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Our procurement and our small business departments got together and talked about some of the struggles that we've had or things that we've seen jointly when we're reviewing proposals. So we thought it would be an awesome idea for the two airports to get together and talk about it. Give you all some tips, give you all some things that we've noticed along the way. But what we wanted to make sure that you understood was that you were going to be receiving information from two separate airports. We are owned by two completely separate entities, and by completely separate boards, and our processes and procedures are very different. So while we're both airports and we have some similarities in how we do business and what we'll be looking for in procurements, we want you to make sure that you understand that when the Charlotte Douglas Airport talks and speaks to you about their requirements, that is from the Charlotte Douglas Airport. And when the Raleigh-Durham International Airport speaks about our requirements and our processes, that'll be from Raleigh-Durham Airport. Again, if you would, please mute your line.
Quiet mine, put yours all the way up.
Hold on just a moment. We're going to work on muting some of these lines to make sure that when our presenters begin, they are not distracted. If you haven't had an opportunity, I hope you got an email from the Eventbrite system that sent you to the rdu.com/business expo page, because on that page we have the materials that we'll be reviewing for you. There will be solicitation documents, even a draft proposal that we want to go over with you. So if you haven't had a chance, please visit rdu.com/business expo, and you'll be able to download the documents that our speakers will be reviewing. This presentation, our presentations are going to be based or focused on goods and services. We are not specifically speaking in this presentation about construction or about concessions, although you may find some interesting or helpful tidbits about how to propose in those arenas. This is not about construction specifically, nor is it about concessions. We are focusing this presentation on goods and services and how we would like for you to propose to us. If you would, as we're going along, please put your questions in the chat. We will have people monitoring those. As I said, there are almost 250 people that have registered for this event, so we're not entirely sure that we'll be able to take your questions verbally, but we definitely want to hear your questions. So with all that being said, I'm going to pass it to Michelle Torres from the Charlotte Airport.
Thank you, Tane. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today. We are really excited to put on this event and excited for all of you to join us. I'm Michelle Torres. I am the Office of Civil Rights Manager for the Charlotte Airport. My team is responsible for administering the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise programs, as well as the Limited English Proficiency and ADA programs. Today, you will hear from Crystal Bailey, who I will hand over to in a second to introduce herself, who is one of our procurement contract managers, to talk a little bit more about procurement at Charlotte Airport. So Crystal, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Crystal Bailey. I work here at Charlotte Douglas International Airport in the procurement department for aviation. I handle the goods and services for a lot of the airport, and I primarily do the majority of the solicitations here for the goods and services for the facilities department.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And I just wanted to acknowledge that from Charlotte Airport, we also have Alexis Kondratic, our Business Diversity and Development Manager, as well as Marcus Choi, who is our Business Diversity Program Specialist. And with that, I will send it over to you, Corinne, to introduce everyone at RDU.
We were going to wait until we did our presentation, but that's okay. My name is Corinne. I am the director. I'm not even going to tell you my last name. It's Polish. We're not going to worry about it. but I am the Director of Procurement here at RDU. I'm very excited, and I'm really, really glad to be here. So thank you guys for asking us to be here. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dale.
Hi, I'm Dale Poole, Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority and Senior Contract Specialist. So I prepare RFPs and contracts for the authority.
And then we do have one other person who is joining us, and that is Christopher Rosette. He is the VP of Legal Affairs. He won't be participating in the presentation, but he is here in case there are any general questions he can answer. Okay.
Great, thank you so much, Corinne. All right, I am going to share my screen and we can get started with the presentation. Okay, can everyone see my screen? And is it a full screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, Crystal, you're up.
Okay, everyone. Again, my name is Crystal Bailey, and I'm the Contracts Compliance Manager. So in starting our presentation, being that we're talking about a successful proposal, I wanted to start off in what we do when we get ready to solicit for a process. There are 5 things that we usually take into consideration when we get ready to solicit, and things that I do. I make sure we identify the specifications or the scope of work for which is needed, facilitating the actual whole solicitation process from beginning to end, bringing in those proposals. I'm sorry. Evaluating proposals, evaluating responses, recommending an award, and then we execute the contract. Those are the 5 primary steps that we take. Next slide. So also, I just wanted to go over what we do when we get ready to evaluate a process. When we get ready to evaluate, there are predetermined criteria. So we don't determine it when a solicitation comes in. This criteria can range from anywhere from 1 to several different factors. And the criteria is associated with the reference service and helps with the review process to determine the best fit for an organization based upon the responses received. And I listed here a couple of examples of things that we take into consideration, especially when we're looking at experience. Years of experience is important. Relevant skills and how it relates to the project experience. Pricing and compensation is something that's also taken into consideration. Delivery timeframes, whether or not you're able to meet the requested deliverables. Ability to meet contractual terms and conditions, references, and then there may be other requirements that we're looking for, like if it's pest control, a pest control license. So you might see different things that are required on the solicitation process. Next slide. So one of the first things that we do after we post a solicitation, and we do post our solicitations publicly, is we have a pre-proposal meeting. This is an opportunity for interested proposers to come out and listen and learn about what we are talking about and advertising with regards to the service. This also is an opportunity for companies of various sizes to network and to create partnerships. So I always encourage people to attend pre-bid meetings. Sometimes you will see that there are mandatory pre-proposal meetings, but sometimes they are not. Usually if something is mandatory, it's because it is very important for that person or that company to come out, look at it, take dimensions, pictures, do whatever you need to do so that we are able to get a very good response and pricing for what we are requesting. Next slide. So here it is an example of one that was posted this year. We did a solicitation for the main terminal backroom conveyor. Again, we usually ask people to come to the pre-proposal conference. You can go to the next slide. During a pre-proposal conference, things that we usually go over, here's my sample agenda, would be introductions and attendee lists. We usually ask people to add your name. Since we're working in an electronic environment and a COVID environment right now, we have people do things electronically. So if you attend, we usually take attendance and ask that you put your name in the chat so we can take an attendee list. Submissions and openings are going over as far as the requirements. Addenda and bidder questions are allowed. Project scope is discussed. A scheduled site visit. Instructions to bidders and proposers. Bid proposal forms and supplements that may be required. We talk about our Charlotte Business Inclusion Program, which just has to do with our minority goals. We operate through an bidding portal. We talk about airport security requirements, and then we also let people ask additional questions and comments. Next slide, please. So here is a sample of our introduction. We may go over whoever the CLT staff is, usually whoever the RFP manager, the project manager, and whoever our Charlotte Business Inclusion Program manager or specialist is who's working with the particular solicitation. Again, we do take your attendance information, and we ask that you use eBuilder portal. Next slide. As far as an RFP submission, we do normally discuss here the due dates and times that solicitations are due. We, Charlotte Douglas International Airport, we operate in an electronic bidding portal. So we only accepting at this time electronic submissions. We do go over the e-bidding portal, which I will continue to go over, but at least I wanted to give examples of what a presentation would look like. Public openings are held via WebEx, and the details are included. Right now, we are not holding any in-building public openings. And the award for the contract is usually for an invitation to bid, or for a service. It may go to the lowest responsible proposer or bidder, taking into consideration quality, performance, time specified in the proposal for the performance of the contract. Next slide, please. Again, going back to the evaluation criteria for this particular project, we had already had in here the 4 particular evaluation criteria were selected. We evaluated on proposers' ability to meet the experience requirements as set forth in the specifications based upon demonstrated experience. Operations plan. I can't see. Hold on for a second. Sorry, these little things popping up. CLT is evaluating on proposal requirements set forth usually in the specifications. We do ask, it's recommended if you're doing something where you have like an operation, say if you're doing janitorial staffing or something like that, usually include an operations plan. On this particular one, CLT also considered a plan that's necessary for staffing and the experience of the individual team proposers to provide the work, and then compensation was also taken into consideration. Next slide, please. Addenda. Normally when we have a pre-proposal meeting, we usually issue an addenda. We do ask for our particular solicitations that questions be submitted and addressed in written form through the e-builder portal. And this is probably with any particular solicitation that you'll be a process of, is why you are allowed to ask questions during like a pre-bid or pre-proposal meeting. Usually if we request that things be in writing, that way you get a formal answer. We also normally always include the deadline, and we ask that you also check your RFP checklist. In our solicitations, I usually include a checklist, and you're able to go through and check them off. Next slide, please. Again, Charlotte uses an electronic submission process. And I said, while it's posted on Charlotte's contract opportunity page, aviation utilizes an electronic submission process. We operate in a paperless environment, accept electronic submissions via e-builder, e-bidding portal. Registration is required in order for you to utilize the e-builder system. Also, we do require that pricing has to be entered via the e-portal and of the documents via the e-builder portal. And you'll see on the next slide in just a moment. Give me 1 second. My last little bullet point says to pull down the RFP in order to maintain and required to register and download the documents in e-builder. A lot of people will send me something and said, and recently I just had something else, and people were like, can you send me the documents, please? Can you send me the documents? However, we are asking for people to go into the e-builder portal to obtain and download the documents. That way you are also able to go back in and upload the documents. Next slide, please. So here, if people have questions for Charlotte Douglas International Airport, we have here, and I really can't circle, sorry, I don't have my little pen here, but where I have the red line is where we direct people to go to the Q. You'll see a little tab that says Q&A board, and then that's where you go in where the red arrow is to submit your questions. And you can ask any questions that you like with regards to the solicitation, the contract, whatever pretty much questions that you have that relates to this particular project. Next slide, please. Contract scope is also normally discussed as part of a proposal process. This particular one was to provide design, engineering, fabrication, transportation to and from the site, installation, removal, replacement, demolition, modification, testing, and turnover in work in order for the baggage handling system and conveyor equipment upgrades in compliance with the specifications. If there's ever a time that you don't understand something about a scope or that you need clarification, please ask those questions via the clarification questions period. Next slide. Drawings, pictures, and diagrams are also important, usually during pre-proposal and pre-bid meetings. This is just a copy of one that we use. But just to let you know, if you're interested in seeing, or you say, I have more questions, can I see? Normally diagrams and stuff are usually included sometimes in particular proposal processes. Next slide. So a lot of times site visits are normally a part of a proposal process. For this particular one, we normally ask for the solicitation to be scheduled in order and to comply with social distancing. Being that we are moving back into, we're still in the COVID environment, but a lot of times you will see a site visit as part already as a proposal process. If it is not one, you still have the ability to ask if you can have a site visit if you need more information, or if you feel like this would make your bid better if you could do a site visit. For the particular airport, you have to schedule visits, and we ask on this particular one, and it's pretty much standard for the majority of all of our site visits, that personal information is required 3 days in advance. And that's because if you have to come onto the airport into a secured area. Next slide, please. Here I go over the requirements with regards to a site visit. So when I ask for personal information, we are normally looking for a full name, your first, middle, and last name, your gender, your date of birth, and the purpose of your visit. This is because you are still coming to an airport as if you were a passenger, so we still have to follow the protocols and procedures with anyone coming into the airport behind the secure area. I just wanted to present out that all non-badge visitors will need to present a valid form of ID upon arrival. And if you don't get your it's almost like a pre-admission process taken care of, we cannot issue a badging pass. Also, you still have to go through TSA screening. So no weapons, no tools, no liquids, no gel. None of those things are going to be required because we still treat you like a passenger. Once you are through screening, you get a visitor's pass. However, if you leave the sterile pass area that day, that is it. You just get one time to go in and go out, and there is no smoking past the screening area. One other thing, if you already have been, say, on Charlotte property, worked on Charlotte property, if you're an individual that has not returned an expired badge or holds an active or suspended badge at Charlotte, we will not issue a visitor's pass unless those badges are returned to us. That's just part of their process, that if you already have a badge and you don't turn it back in, we cannot issue another one. Next slide, please. Instructions to proposers. Again, we go through the whole proposal process pretty much. A lot of the information that I'm going over right now is pretty much consolidated information that is included in the solicitation. I've just taken it down and put it in a proposal. We usually go over the contract term, also the insurance requirements. Here at Charlotte Douglas, if you are going onto the aircraft operations area, the insurance requirements are higher for the airport than they are for the rest of the city of Charlotte. And that's just the way our terms are. Just because we are an airport, it's $5 million per accident, combined single limit for each occurrence, and it's also the same for the commercial general liability insurance if you're inside of the fence. This is something that if you are interested in bidding, take into consideration whether or not you can meet those requirements, because we have had proposals where they may have won the contract, however, they weren't able to meet the insurance requirements. So just wanted to share with you, while the big thing is to win a contract, you have to be able to meet the requirements, and certificate of insurance is a major requirement with any contract. And I'm not going to say just with Charlotte, probably with almost any public agency. Next slide, please. We have forms and supplements that are required to be submitted along with their response package. Right now, for this particular one that I'm going through, it is 6. You can move to the next slide, please. One thing that I will ask is, please make sure that you read the requirements of a particular proposal. And the only reason that I'm mentioning this even before I go through these proposal forms is because we recently just had somebody participate in a solicitation and they did not submit not one form. Please follow the instructions. Everybody's proposal is different. We cannot accept your bid if you don't follow the instructions. It's not fair to everyone else, and we do what we call a fair and level process when we have our evaluations. So I just want to go through this. This is another particular reason why during our proposal process, we go through the forms and let you know what we're looking for and what is back. So for instance, or what is due back. So for instance, this one is Form 1. It is a required form to be returned. Things that are covered in Form 1 would be a cover letter, a non-collusion affidavit. It means that you're not colluding with anyone else in order to get this work. Acknowledgement of the addenda. Go to the next page, please. Exceptions. Any exceptions that you have with a contract, the form, anything. If you have a question or anything, you're allowed to write those exceptions down. Does it mean that you're not going to win the bid? or this proposal or solicitation, project or service? No, it does not. However, it just means that I have additional clarification questions. I don't agree. Can we negotiate on? Next slide, please. Verification of certification of authenticity. I can't even get the word out. Authenticity of proposal. We do ask that, I think here I have 6 forms, and 5 out of the 6 forms are required to be signed. And this is one of them. Next form, please. Another one is qualification and proposal requirements is also required. This also talks about financial capacity and experience and qualifications. Next slide. We do ask on a lot of our proposals, pretty much the majority of them, that proposals provide substantially similar work within the previous 5 years on this particular one. In the chart, we want to know, and almost any agency wants to know, how is it that you qualify? Do you have the experience to do the same thing? Can you show us evidence that you've done something like this before? It's always a good thing, always a good thing. Always please provide valid references, get approvals from your references to use those people, because we do check for references. It's nice that you provide that information, but if you give me a wrong email or a wrong phone number, I can't contact them, and that doesn't look good. Next slide, please. We also asked about proposal history. This is very important. We want to know, has the proposer been subject to claims, actions, demands, suits, or other litigations brought by an airport owner, operator, or others over non-payment of rent, fees, non-performance of similar work as requested under this RFP? Does the proposer have any past due arrears or proposer in breach of any previous or existing contract with the city? Has proposer declared bankruptcy in the last 5 years? And during the past 10 years, have any proposer's contracts, leases, or other agreements been terminated or canceled, either voluntary or involuntary, by another airport owner operator? Again, be honest in your answers. Usually, people know about people know about companies. So it's always good to know. While I work for Charlotte Douglas, and I actually work for the City of Charlotte Aviation Department, sometimes there are other evaluators that work in other departments. And while you might not tell me something, you may have worked in a different department that may say, you know what? They worked with me on this one, and I thought that they got terminated for a particular reason. I don't know if we can do business with them. Always be honest. Honesty is the best policy. Next slide, please. Operations plan and staffing plans. Proposals should attach an operations plan clearly marked that includes information on specific services provided by the proposer as part of the work. This could include, without limitation and as applicable, training plan, a quality monitoring program, project schedule, implementation plan, transition plan, or other information. Staffing plan, with regards to a staffing plan, if you could show how this includes staffing support will provide to ensure the work is provided in compliance with the specifications. It's always good to have more than less. Always good to have more or less. Next slide, please. References. Here I am talking about references again. So not only do we ask in some of the projects for project experience, here again is where we're looking for references. We at Aviation ask for references, but we ask that you not use us as the reference. Have you worked anywhere else that you can provide a references? Sometimes that answer is yes, sometimes it's no, but let us know. You're always, you can provide additional information on a second form but references are always a positivity that yes, you are, are in good graces with people. You've done the work, you can meet the requirements, and people are happy with the work that I've done in the past. Next slide, please. We have a non-discrimination form that we ask for you to sign. And I'm sorry, Form 2 was not an actual form to be signed, but it did have a lot of information in there. Next slide. Michelle, I'm gonna let you talk now.
Yep, thanks, Crystal.
You're welcome.
I'm going to talk about the business diversity programs at Charlotte Airport. So typically for our services projects, we will have one of our business diversity programs included. Charlotte Business Inclusion Program, or CBI program, is our local diversity program, and we'll typically have an SBE, or small business enterprise, MBE, or minority business enterprise, or WBE goal, women business enterprise. Typically, you will see for services projects that we will have a negotiated MWSBE goal. So if you see MWSBE, it's just a combination of those 3 certifications, and we will typically allow participation from a firm that has at least one of those certifications. The Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, or DBE program, is also applicable to some of our services projects, and so is the Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, or ACDBE program. The Airport Concessions, or ACDBE program, is very limited. Those are typically like parking management or valet services, ATM services, things like that. It's very limited that you will see the ACDBE program applied to our services projects, but it does happen. Usually Charlotte Business Inclusion Program, it would be the main program you would see for our services programs. And it just depends, the decision to utilize a specific program just depends on the funding source of the program, of the project. So if a project is non-federal, it will fall under the requirements for the CBI program. If the project is federally funded, then it would fall under either the DBE or the ACDBE program. And for our services projects, the goals are typically negotiated with the selected proposer after they are selected. And for services projects, we require 2 forms to be signed: the proposal form 4, which you will see on the next slide, and the utilization form 3. So this is what the form 4 looks like in the services project RFP. You will see for this particular project, it fell under the Charlotte Business Inclusion Program, and it was a negotiated goal. So this is what the language looks like for that particular project, and this is the language that will be included on the form 4 for negotiated goals. And then this is the front page of the utilization form 3. And this form is required to, both forms are required to be signed and completed and submitted with your RFP package. And this form, CBI form 3, is a utilization form that lists out the MBE, WBE, or SBE firms that the proposer intends to use on their project. And this is the form that we will use once the proposer is selected to negotiate a percentage of participation. It is really important that these forms are signed and submitted. All right, Crystal, I think you're going to cover this one.
Yes, so we also ask that you complete a confidentiality form. It goes over plans, drawings, trade secrets, security plans, privilege information, and other information. One thing that is important to say about public agencies is that information is public. So there's not a lot of, if you have things that are marked confidential and trade secret, we ask that you mark it in a separate envelope. Next slide, please. Here for confidential information, it's 4 pages long, but it is required to be signed and submitted. Next slide. Form 6. We include Form 6, which is, it's called a pricing worksheet, but it's more like pricing instructions. The reason that it's called a pricing worksheet is because before we went into the electronic environment, you would provide your pricing with your pricing worksheet. However, in the electronic environment, we still include this worksheet with the instructions as far as completing the compensation worksheet. We cover things about all price increases over the term of the contract, if and when there's an error taken in the pricing, exceptions are taken, and discounts and different things like that. However, our pricing, again, is required to be submitted via the e-building portal. Next slide, please. Here is an example of what our e-bidding portal looks like. The pricing portal will be different for every project because it's customized for every particular proposal. For this particular one, and you will see the red arrows drawn, we had proposed equipment pricing and we had preferred alternate pricing requested. Usually when you go into the pricing, you will find the description of what is asked for, the quantity, the unit of measure, and the unit cost. And it's really, really simple to use because the only thing you really have to do is just enter whatever the unit cost is, or either sometimes a lump sum, and then it will keep moving. It will just give us a bidder's total at the end. Next slide, please. With the e-builder, this is again the picture of the submission portal. Here on our particular one, you will see at the bottom where there's a red arrow is, there's the bid forms, there are the response forms. We specifically want you to upload the documents via the response documents tab. You will see at the other red arrow where to attach your documents. And then the other arrow shows you where to hit the submit button. We do, for our particular submissions, we just ask, just because we've had experience over the past, to please combine all submittal forms and documents and upload as one file. This is probably a recommendation for almost any, unless a specific agency is requesting other words. And to please limit your file name to less than or equal to 20 characters. The reason that we are asking for this is because you might have problems uploading documents when your file names are extremely long. Next slide, please. Airport and security requirements. Again, since we are an airport, we do have security program requirements and airport badging requirements. While is there a preference in how you name your files? I will answer that question at the end, but no, there is not. We do have a link, and here, you're welcome, Amanda. Please see requirements and solicitation packets, and you can also go to cltairport.com/business/credentialing, and it goes over all of the information with regards to CLT's security program, policies, and procedures. Not all projects or services are required to meet badging requirements, because not all of them, while this is an airport and an airport campus that's huge for Charlotte Douglas, not all of them are within the restricted areas. Next slide, please. Badging requirements. I would just like to mention that when there are 5 or more company employees, we require that a security badge to perform the work. The company must designate at least one person as an authorized signer. The authorized signer must hold a valid CLT badge and is responsible for all required training and the completion of all required documents and process steps to secure and retain valid CLT badges for employees. Again, you can go to our website, cltairport.com/business/credentialing for more information. Next slide, please. Here is where I normally ask people to ask their questions. It's not for this particular presentation, but you can ask questions. And again, while we do allow people to ask questions during a proposal process, proposal meeting, we ask that all questions are not formally answered, and you cannot hold to verbal questions or verbal answers. They are formally answered via addenda. Next slide. So how do you do business with the city of Charlotte? So on our page, we do have a page in which I just took a screenshot of this because I like visual, like to see things. But we have a business page that goes over contract opportunities, how do you register as a vendor, who are the current vendors, Charlotte Business Inclusion Program, city procurement, economic development, and different things. I did write or include on this screen the website. It is charlottennc.gov/doing business/pages/default-ASPX. One of the most important things that I will see, will it be posted? I am sure it's going to be posted. One of the most important things up here is that you will notice that there is a green button on this page. I'm always encouraging people to go to the Doing Business with Charlotte page and click and register and subscribe for notifications. This way you'll be the first one to know about opportunities when they are posted. And that to me is usually always important to people. Next slide, please. Early bird. So the city of Charlotte now has a business opportunities pipeline page, and this site is a comprehensive listing of active and in development contracting opportunities, not only for aviation, but for all city of Charlotte departments. Next slide. So on this one, this is what early bird looks like. Early bird just shows, it just goes, and you can filter in different places up here, but you can see there was in development a ground power circuit upgrade solicitation, airport main entrance landscape additions, air handler unit 63 replacement. But this is just somewhere to go if you're interested in participating, how you can get information in advance of what is Charlotte Douglas looking at, what is coming about within the city of Charlotte. Again, I'd like to point that email address out. It's https://earlybird.charlottebusinessresources.com. Next slide, please. Vendor registration. So to be notified about contracting opportunities, as well as receiving purchase orders and/or payment, the city requires vendors to be registered. Why am I mentioning this? I put it like this. In order for you to get paid, when you do a contract with Charlotte, and in order to get paid, you have to be a registered vendor. This is important, or I'm mentioning this and this as a tip for anyone who's interested in doing business, because I have had opportunities where we have reached out for quotes, got the lowest quote, and vendors did not want to register. If you don't register, we can't do business with you. And that is not my policy. That is a City of Charlotte policy. And that's just the way it is. But the main reason, I believe, is vendors get registered, your number is attached to a W-9, and that is how you pretty much get paid. Registered vendors are visible to and searchable by all city departments for solicitation and purchasing opportunities. What we do is when I post a solicitation or when the city posts a solicitation is we use a commodity code and you register with Charlotte as registered vendors under your services commodity code. Next slide, please. Again, I just wanted to post what a vendor registration page looks like. Different things that we're asking for would be your tax identification number, a social security number. But there is information. There is a particular department that handles this, but I wanted to include it so that you can see that there's a vendor registration and W-9 email, and also a phone number and fax for you to ask questions. Next slide, please. Outreach. Sign up for project alerts. Again, the best way to find out about something, sign up to get notified. Keep up to date with certifications. Separate emails are sent for projects. Ensure commodity codes are up to date. Sometimes if you switched or there's an additional commodity code, you don't necessarily have to just sign up for one commodity code, but also sign up for another. If you do products and services, register for products and services. Attend outreach events like this. This is to me is really good for the vendor community, and I think that this is a positive outreach. People ask me all the time, how do I get involved? What do I do? How do I register? This is a great way, is by attending outreach events and to utilize Early Bird to see upcoming projects. Next slide.
And Crystal, I will just add, as far as the commodity codes are concerned, it's really important to make sure that your commodity codes are up to date in the system and that they reflect all of the services that you provide. Because when we send out separate emails for certified firms, we are going by the commodity codes for that project. And if you are providing multiple services or you only utilize a very specific commodity code when you could also be utilizing a general commodity code, you might miss out on that separate email that's sent. So I would just definitely recommend to, when you get registered for the city of Charlotte, just make sure that you are utilizing all of the commodity codes that you can reasonably perform services for.
I agree.
And I could take these last slides, Crystal.
Okay, thank you.
So just some tips on submitting successful proposals. It is really important to make sure that you follow proposal instructions. Not all instructions are the same. It varies by project, and the formats also, the general format can be similar, but the requirements can be different based on the project. Make sure that you edit and proofread. If you're utilizing a boilerplate template, make sure that you fully update for the specific proposal that you are responding to. You know, make sure that the right airport is listed in there, and that you are definitely proofreading your template before submission. Ask questions and seek clarification in advance of the due date. As Crystal had mentioned before, you have the opportunity to submit questions via the eBuilder bidding portal. So it's really important, if you have questions about the scope or you need clarification around something, that you ask before the time frame for answering questions is closed. Make sure that you state your service plan or service approach as part of your submission. More is always better than less. Include project schedules and or project budgets and resumes. And please make sure that the person submitting the proposal has knowledge of company passwords for electronic submission processes. There was an instance where the person submitting the proposal did not have the company passwords to obtain some of the information needed for submission. So just make sure that whoever is submitting the proposal has all of that information ahead of time so that there is no surprises on the due date. Proposals shall consist of all forms. Make sure that all of the forms that are included in the specific RFP and any additional information that's relevant to the work that the proposer believes will help in making the decision is submitted with the proposal. I cannot stress enough to make sure that the required forms are also included and signed. Make sure that the signature is from an authorized representative of the company. Any erasures or corrections must be initialed and dated by the authorized representative that signs the forms. Proposals that are identical in format, the proposal should be identical in format to facilitate the evaluation process. The failure to comply with the format requirements may set forth in rejection of the proposal. And this is a good one to remember. Pre-proposal conferences may be non-mandatory, but we do have some projects where pre-proposal conferences are mandatory in order to be able to submit your proposal. So please just make sure that you are taking note of that when you are submitting for a specific project. And all of the pre-proposal conferences are currently being held via WebEx and not in person. And as Crystal had went over before, it is a great opportunity to learn about the project, to see who the project representatives are for CLT, all of the requirements, and also to see what other firms may be proposing or bidding if you're looking to be a subconsultant or a subcontractor. One thing to note for the pre-proposal meeting, if you, especially in an ITB situation, if a proposer attends the pre-proposal meeting, and let's say in an ITB situation, you do not meet the goal, you do receive points for attending the pre-proposal meeting. So just want to put that out there as part of the process. The opportunity to informally ask questions are at the presentation. However, all of the questions have to be formally submitted via eBuilder, as Crystal went over before. Making sure you read addendums and clarifications. I would say reading the addendums and the responses to questions that were provided is extremely important. This, even if it's not a question that you asked, there may be some clarification to another part of the project that you didn't think about. So definitely read the responses to the questions in the addendums. Make sure you submit it, your submission checklist ensures that all of the requested documents are uploaded. And always a good piece of advice, submit your proposals in advance to minimize delay in the system. And so that you're not up against the clock, especially if you encounter some kind of issue that would prevent you from submitting.
Can
If
I
there
give
are
one
technical
more tip, Michelle? This is
Mhm.
Crystal. I have had people reach out and say, Crystal, can you send me who are registered to, who plans on submitting a bid? Can you send me those company names? For the city of Charlotte, not all proposals are required to have people registered to submit bid. So if you're interested in that information, it's always a good idea for you to attend a pre-proposal meeting, and also maybe probably we get to or request to have your name and address included on the agenda as somebody who's willing to work with someone. Again, those are opportunities for you to network during those meetings. Because again, all proposers aren't, we don't know who's always planning on bidding. So that information to me, I don't want people to miss out on that, looking for information from a project person or RFP manager. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Crystal. That is a really great point. And that is really important for our firms that are looking to partner with other firms on a project. So thank you. Just some additional tips. If there's technical questions regarding eBuilder, you can contact the RFP manager who is listed on each project. Please make sure you submit confidential and proprietary information and trade secrets or PII separately. And the confidentiality caption must appear on each of the trade secret or PII materials. And then make sure you use your company's legally approved name and the name that appears on your W-9 form. And that is it for us. We are ready to take questions.
All right, so while we're getting ready for Corinne to bring her presentation up, I will read the questions. I believe that we answered most of them. And I want to reiterate that there are a lot of things that will be the same for the Raleigh-Durham Airport, but this presentation that you just heard was from the Charlotte-Douglas Airport. So some of those tips are specific to Charlotte, so keep that in mind. The first question we received was, how does a person become a bidder to know about these meetings? And that's for Crystal or Michelle.
Again, to go in and register as a City of Charlotte vendor, get your name. I showed that slide to get to notify me. But yes, just go on the How to Doing Business with Charlotte page and get registered and register under the commodity code.
And that link is in the chat. If you didn't catch it when she gave it to you, the links that she mentioned in her presentation are in the chat.
Thank you.
I'm also going to include a link in the chat to sign up for project alerts. If you're looking to actually get specific project alerts, you can sign up. It'll send you every project that we put out, but at least you know you won't miss anything. So I'll put that link in the chat as well.
All right. And the other question was about file names, and I believe you responded to that also, but is there a preferred file name format?
No, it's not, because you are submitting up under your company's name, so we could just really just say proposal response, or I mean, sometimes we have file names that says Crystal Bailey is submitting this file for requirement form number 1. That is way super long, and I've noticed that people have had issues uploading when file names are extremely long, and it's just the only reason you're having problems is because the file name is too long.
Okay. Thank you. Corinne, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right.
Share my screen.
Oh.
Can everyone see my screen? Chane?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So first, I just want to say thank you to all the vendors for attending. I really appreciate it. It's a great opportunity for you guys, as Crystal has mentioned, to network and take this opportunity to do just that. So, all right. All right, so just a quick overview of what we're going to be covering here. Our introductions again, types of solicitations, our RFP process, a review of the RFP document, which we'll probably do closer to the end when we do our tips and tricks, and aviation specific topics, how to submit, and questions and answers. Okay. So again, I am Corinne. As you can see, I do have that Polish last name, Lisewski, Director of Procurement. We have Dale Poole with us, Senior Procurement and Contract Specialist, and Chane Carter, Director of Small Business Programs, as well as Chris Rosette. He is joining, and he will be here to answer some very general questions if you guys have them. And Chris is the VP of Legal Affairs. So, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank Chane, Michelle for getting us all together. I really appreciate that too. So thank you guys for all that hard work. All right. So types of solicitations that we have here at RDU are requests for quotes, or RFQ, not to be confused with requests for qualifications. So just keep that in mind. We call our requests for qualifications RFQUs. So requests for quotes are informal. We also have requests for bids, or RFBs. You'll also hear those referred to as IFBs, ITBs. There's a bunch of different names, but essentially if it has bid in it, you're looking at low price and it's formal, okay? And the last thing you're going to have is requests for proposals, and that's really what, as Chane has said, we're going to be focusing on. So, all right. So the overview of our RFP process is we issue the RFP. And before we do that, we get together with the requesting department, the scope of work is developed, their evaluation criteria is given to us. We issue deadlines and dates, including the pre-proposal meeting. Crystal mentioned this before. It is a great tip. Guys, it's free networking for you guys. Go to those. Go to as many as you can. I can't stress that enough. Go to all of them if you can. So we'll also issue the deadline for when proposals are due. That is a hard and fast deadline. Now, we are not as advanced as Charlotte. We still ask for hard copies. So make sure you turn in your hard copies at the deadline submission date and time and location, okay? It's important that I mention the location because a lot of our proposers are having a hard time finding our location. It's 1000 Trade Drive, and for whatever reason, FedEx, UPS, and the United States Post Office all have different addresses for us. So keep that in mind. I highly suggest you submit early if possible. Okay? Proposals are evaluated. They are evaluated on responsiveness, and then they're going to be evaluated on the evaluation criteria. Those are two separate things. We'll go over a little bit more later. And then we do have potential interviews for the highest ranked offerers. We then negotiate the contract, and contract is awarded to the highest ranked offerer. We also may need to go to board, so I would encourage you to keep in mind our process is going to be long if we need to go to board. So just letting you know in advance. So general RFP document information. So we actually split our document up into several different parts. We have our general information, which is going to be pretty much uniform throughout all different RFPs. It's going to give you our addresses for submission, general information about the airport itself, and some little tips and tricks that we keep the same, okay? Then we're going to have we're going to have project-specific solicitation, and that is where you're going to have your scope of work. I know this is very confusing because if you've ever pulled anything off the state IPS site that we will sometimes post to, it's one document, and I know it gets confusing, but it should be really 4 separate documents, okay? We also have forms, which I know Crystal had forms that she went over. We're going to go over our forms. Some are similar, some are different. You'll also have the evaluation criteria. That will be listed in the specific solicitation information portion. And we also have our MWSB requirements. So moving on. And I can't, so if anyone has questions, China, can you keep an eye on that? Because I can't see the chat right now. So, okay, thank you. All right. So general overview, again, we have the general specific, or we have general, we have specific, and we have the draft contract in our forms. It's 4 different documents if you go to rdu.com. If you're on state IPS, it will be one document, all one PDF. So keep that in mind. The other thing we want to keep in mind is that we issue our addenda as separate documents, and we can issue them anytime throughout the course of the solicitation being open. Unfortunately, our website does not notify you when we've issued those addenda, so it is up to the vendor to go and look at rdu.com and make sure they're not missing any of the addenda. All right, and now I'm going to turn it over to Dale to handle the forms.
Thanks, Corinne. I'm Dale Poole, a Senior Contract Specialist here at RDU Airport Authority. As part of our RFP, as Corinne talked about, we do have some required forms as well. Generally, the answer is please pay attention to the forms, read them all, complete them in their entirety, and the ones that have a space or require a signature, the signature is a requirement, so be sure that you read them all the way through and fill them out completely. For example, one of our is our pricing form. Okay, back, whoop. Which one are we showing here? Proposal pricing form. The proposal pricing form is basically where you would enter your pricing, and in some cases where there is a lengthy or a large amount of line items, there may be an Excel spreadsheet to simplify your being able to submit your pricing, but we don't are not able to post it in an Excel file format. So what you would see there, as an example, in the RFP, it would state that there is an Excel file available that you would need to request by email, and then the RFP will specify those instructions. And the intent there is that the Excel file would allow you to more easily enter all of your line item pricing that you can include with your proposal, but the RFP as posted would only be in an Adobe PDF document. Okay, next one, please, Craig.
Yep.
Form.
Do you want to go up to the first document first?
Yes, back to the acknowledgement form, please.
Yep. And I will just add to what Dale was saying. We didn't give you a pricing form to look at because each form could be different depending on the solicitation. Okay.
Generally, RFP will ask for this acknowledgement. This is not a requirement. And as a general rule throughout the RFP solicitation, be sure you look for the words that say mandatory or required, because if that's stated, then that is the case. This form just gives us here at the Airport Authority and Procurement an idea of who is intending to submit a proposal. It does not contractually obligate you to anything or to even submit a proposal. This gives us an idea of who is going to possibly submit. And this is just another layer of communication that we would use. So if you were to fill out this form acknowledging your intent to submit, if we issued an addenda, then other than our normal places where we post addenda, which is always on our website, you may also get an email directly sent to you if you do provide us with this information ahead of time. Next one, please, Corinne. This one is important because the execution document must be signed. If this is not signed, then your whole proposal basically is non-responsive and we would not be able to accept it. So it's important here that you put the legal name of your company, address, telephone number, and email is important. So if we have any type of follow-up to make with you, this is where we would go to get this information. It has some of the same information that Charlotte mentioned, such as non-collusion that you would need to certify. Most important takeaway here is that this absolutely must be signed as part of your proposal. It also, if addenda are issued, then this acknowledges that you saw the addenda, so you would list them each here and the date and initial it. And this just allows us so it would all become part of the contract later that you did indeed see and accept the addenda. So this is important as well. Debarment certification, all of these items are required by either the state or the FAA. There's a certification in here that you're not on the Iran debarment list, etc. So these are all just things that's careful to read. Complete the blanks where there are and be sure to sign. References are important because more often than not, part of the evaluation criteria for an RFP would include the references. So if the evaluation criteria were to score your references, then of course it's important that you actually provide the references, provide clear contact information because we will be following up with those references. And as Charlotte suggested, you should alert your references that they may be contacted by the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority for this subject matter. This is some questions about the history of your company. Most of them are just yes, no. Again, don't leave any blanks. E-Verify is required for companies of a certain size, is required by federal law and some by North Carolina statute. As Charlotte mentioned, they are actually under the authority of their city. Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority is slightly different. We're like a pseudo government. We are actually controlled by a board, which is populated by the city of Durham, Wake County, city of Raleigh. So we're not a government entity to that respect, but we typically follow all the rules and regulations of local municipalities similarly. It's important if you submit your proposal to include up-to-date W-9 form. Even if you are a current supplier to the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority, we ask that you provide the W-9 because we may very well have outdated information on file.
Says, if round it up, if you will, just
Okay.
give us a little fluff. What we're going to
You're
do.
not muted. Could you please mute your phone so our speakers can continue. Thank you.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, even if you're a current supplier for Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority, please include an updated W-9 form so that we can ensure that the information in our ERP system is up to date. These forms here are all things that are required by the FAA, and these will vary by every single solicitation because the FAA is very specific, and we can't just include everything as a template. Some things that are not applicable cannot be included, and of course things that are applicable must be included. So this will vary and change for every solicitation. So, and most of them, the FAA will not allow us to negotiate or change. So, you know, if you can't accept some of these things, you're probably not going to be able to do business with the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority. Similar certifications about tax delinquencies and felony convictions. Check all the check boxes. Be sure you sign the form. As with many of these things, I would reiterate, as pretty much any part of a proposal, is ask questions. Please pay attention in proposals to the deadline to submit questions. Questions are required to be submitted in writing, and that makes it part of the record. But one thing it could do, as an example, let's say a particular RFP required or stated a certain industry certification, but perhaps your company has another type of industry certification that may very well be considered an equivalent that either we didn't recognize or we didn't know about. So as an example, again, you could ask the question, will you accept this other form of industry certification? And of course, we might answer no, but it could very well answer yes, which would then incorporate that as into the solicitation, because it will be part of an addenda. All questions submitted in writing will be answered in writing in a form of an addenda. Next screen. Evaluation criteria, similarly, every single proposal solicitation, the evaluation criteria will be possibly different. So I encourage you to read those carefully, and anything that it says is required, please provide. You can certainly provide more. The more information you can provide that will show that your company has experience or the ability or the expertise to provide a particular service, please do include that. Try to stick to the format of the RFP. If the RFP asks for things in a certain order or in a certain category, try to keep that the same, because it makes it easier for our evaluation committee to more equally score and review proposals that are submitted. Again, if you have any questions, just submit those questions in writing and they will be answered as long as they're submitted by the stated deadline. Experience requirements are important. Again, if it asks that you have a certain amount of experience in a certain field, be sure that you show that in your proposal, and references are typically asked for as to back that up. So be sure that you include references when asked. Now, if for some reason you're a company that's new or you haven't been in business for very long, state that. Or don't have enough. We may ask for 3 references, but perhaps you're new and only have 2. Depending on the particular wording in that proposal, it might make your proposal non-responsive, but not necessarily. So again, the wording is important, and be sure you read carefully and ask questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dale. All right, so China, you're up.
So the Raleigh-Durham Airport has programs that are very similar to the ones that Charlotte-Douglas Airport has, but I'm going to go over them fairly quickly because you will hear them extensively during a pre-proposal meeting. So as Michelle mentioned, we have the Federal Disadvantaged and Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. So you will hear them being called DBE and ACDBE. Typically, those apply to, the DBE program applies to federally assisted contracts, and the ACDBE is concessions, which is goods, services sold to passengers in our terminals or outside on our grounds. That is not what we're covering at this moment. We are covering goods and services procured typically with RDU funds, and those programs or those solicitations are covered by our minority and woman-owned small business program. So our MWSB program is very similar to our federal programs. It's a program to ensure that small businesses, which are owned, operated, and controlled by minorities or women, are offered an opportunity to participate in our solicitations. Next slide. So unlike the Charlotte Douglas Airport, we set goals at the beginning of a solicitation. So in every solicitation document, you will see a goal for the participation of minority and women in our solicitations. So the goals are a percentage of the total contract amount. So you will see a separate goal in terms of a percentage for minority businesses, and then a different goal for woman-owned businesses. You're required as part of the solicitation to either meet both goals or show good faith effort to meet the goals. When you are responding to an RFP or any type of solicitation put out by the Raleigh-Durham Airport, you will either have a form or several forms to indicate that you have met the goal or have not met the goal, or we will ask you to explain how you are meeting the goal in the narrative. So to put that simply, if there is a proposal and there is a written narrative, you will need to explain how you're going to meet the goal, whether or not what vendors you'll be using to meet the goal, or there will be forms that you will use to tell us how you're going to meet the goal. In either case, that information will need to be included in your response to us, and you could be deemed non-responsive if we don't have a response one way or another to you meeting the goal or showing your good faith effort to meet the goal. Next slide, please. So we accept for our MWSB programs a lot of the same certifications that we accept for the DBE program. The DBE certification from the North Carolina Department of Transportation, SBA 8A, WeBank. We also accept the North Carolina Department of Administration Hub Office, but we have to verify that a business is minority owned or woman owned and also small. So those two characteristics may eliminate some of the hub firms because there are non-minority and non-woman owned businesses in that directory. All of that to say, a business must be owned, operated, and controlled by a minority or a woman, and they also must be small in order to participate here at RDU. Next slide. One more thing that I wanted to point out that I think I left out. If you are intending to meet the goal, you will do so either by being a minority or woman-owned business and proposing as a prime, or partnering with a minority or woman-owned business and submitting as a team of some sort, or by using goods and services as a part of your proposal. All of that information, who will be a part of your team, how they will be participating, what the percentage that you will be achieving of the goal should be included in your submission when you submit. Again, if you don't provide that information, you could be deemed non-responsive to our MWSB or DBE program. Okay, I'm done for real this time.
Are you sure? I liked it. You were doing good.
Okay, well, maybe next time.
One question, China, because I'm sure the vendors have this question. If they're partnering with an MWSB, should they include their certification with their proposal?
That is a wonderful question. Yes, that would be most helpful, particularly if they are not certified already with the Raleigh-Durham Airport. It is just a best practice to make it easy for us to find out that your partners are certified.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So tips on how to submit. I cannot stress this enough. Formatting. If we ask for a cover letter, the evaluation criteria of experience, that kind of stuff, all of that, we want it in that order. And the reason we want it in that order is because it makes it easier for the evaluators to evaluate your proposal. They know to go and find it in this order. Here's the cover letter, here's the experience. There you go. If it's hard for an evaluator to find what they need to evaluate in your proposal, you're going to get lower scores, and we don't want that. I want you guys to get good high scores here. Delivery. I mentioned this earlier. We have 3 separate addresses. Make sure when you're taking your proposal to be delivered by FedEx or UPS, you know where to go. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've gotten calls from proposers that have said, I'm at the UPS office and they can't find you. And then I start looking for other addresses for UPS to find. But go early and get this taken care of before 5 minutes before you need to have a submission turned in to make it here on time. If you're hand dropping off the proposal, I will tell you right now, I can't speak for Charlotte, but Google Maps will get you to the Airport Authority building. I don't know about MapQuest. I don't know about any other type of mapping service or GPS, but Google Maps works. So keep that in mind too. Electronic and hard copy. So unlike Charlotte, we don't accept electronic copies to be submitted unless they're on the flash drive or unless it states that in the proposal. Okay. I will tell you, we will ask for hard copies. Typically, it's 1 original and 2 copies, but sometimes it can be 1 original and 4 copies. It will state that in the proposal or in the RFP, so make sure you read that RFP. And again, addenda will change what we're going to ask for. It could change the scope of work. It's going to provide clarification. It could change the due date and time. Make sure you know that the addenda are out there. And again, as Dale has stated, if you have questions, submit them in writing so we can answer them formally. Anything we say verbally is non-binding. Okay. And then again, the formatting suggestions, I follow the order of that we've asked for listed in the RFP. I suggest putting tabs in there with a table of contents that match those tabs. And I say that because I've had several proposals come in recently that they had a table of contents and the tabs didn't match the table of contents. So make sure you've done that. You've made your tabs match. I actually suggest that your tabs are written out. So if you have experience for tab number 2, it's written on tab number 2. It makes it easier front and back of the tab for the evaluators. Okay. So Dale mentioned this earlier too, our FAA required clauses. We have those in our forms, but we will also have attached to the forms our FAA clauses from the FAA. I'm not going to show those to you because they are unique and to each solicitation we do. It depends on dollar amount, what we're doing, all sorts kinds of things. So, and quite frankly, they are very lengthy. So I will also tell you that those FAA clauses get attached to your contract. So make sure you read the contract and the FAA clauses. If there are clauses in the FAA that you don't agree with or you can't comply with, then you need to make sure that you can actually submit a bid because we really cannot change those FAA requirements. Okay. Crystal touched upon this earlier. She talked about badging. We have a requirement here too for badging. We have buildings on site that are not what we call airside, which is where the airplanes are, or landside, which is where a lot of our other buildings, including the authority building, is. You still require badges to get in here for certain goods or services that we need. So I bring this up because badging, if you have to get a badge for your company, that information will be included with the RFP. It's also on our website, but I would recommend that you pay attention to that because that is a cost that you guys will incur. Just keep it in mind. You know, it is not something that we don't pay for that cost. You guys will incur for it. So, all right. So I mentioned we were going to go over some tips and tricks. We're going to go over them, and then we're going to go over a very successful proposal. It was the awarded vendor for our parking staffing RFP we recently put out. I want to just be very clear on this. These are tips and tricks that work for us. They might not work for Charlotte, they might work for Charlotte. They might not work for any other government entity, or they might. But keep them in mind when you're putting together your proposal, okay? One of the things I learned early on in my career is read the RFP and then go back with a cup of coffee and read it again and start taking notes. I have a question here. I don't understand what they mean here. And then submit those questions in writing. So, and that's not just the RFP document. I would suggest if a draft contract is issued with the RFP document, you read the draft contract. You read the addenda. Everything that is associated with that solicitation should be read and reread. And any questions you have written down and submitted so they can be answered. Provide all the information that is requested. Chinese mentioned it, Dale's mentioned it, Crystal's mentioned it, Michelle's mentioned it, we've all said it. If you don't include the information we are requiring, you can be deemed non-responsive. Non-responsive means you're not going to move on to the evaluation side. Over and done. Okay? I don't want to see that happen. So make sure you read everything that is in there and you're providing all the requested information. Attend the pre-submission meeting. We've already talked about that. It's at no cost networking. I mean, I can't say free. You have to listen to somebody speak, and that could be kind of boring or kind of not. I don't know. But it's a great way to network. Okay. It also can provide you with some really good contacts and information on the RFP or IFB. I've seen this happen a lot. You are a vendor who has been with an organization for several years, and you get a little lax, and you're like, oh, they're just going to award to me. They've awarded to me for the last 5 years. Don't make that assumption, guys. Start new. Pretend you're trying to win this bid from another vendor. I'm telling you this because I've had vendors turn in a proposal where they had been our previous incumbent or vendor, and they forgot to change dates in the proposal. Wait a second. Did you? This isn't right. This is from the last one you turned in. It is important that you start fresh. Don't make any assumptions. Just start over like you're trying to win this from another vendor. Okay. Pay attention to the deadlines. We cannot accept proposals or bids that are late. If you are a minute late, I can't accept it, guys. And unfortunately, I've had to turn away a lot of people, mostly because they can't find our location. But unfortunately, it is your responsibility to make sure you know how to get here and that your proposal will get here on time. Make sure you pay attention to those deadlines, because it also, if you submit a question after the deadline for questions, we don't have to respond to it. And you might not get that clarification you need. So again, ask your questions in writing. We can only respond in writing back, but questions we answer verbally are non-binding, and questions you ask us aren't official questions. All right. Follow the requirements. So I noticed on Charlotte's presentation, they said more is better. I'm going to go the exact opposite way and say less is better. We've had some very lengthy proposals come in, and it's a lot for our evaluation team to go through and read a 500-page proposal. So if there are requirements on the font size or the number of pages per section, pay attention to those and make sure you're not exceeding those requirements. Be neat and organized. We've had proposals turned in that weren't bound, and I don't know if they were in the correct order or not. Make sure they're bound, make sure you're following that order. Make it easy on your evaluators to find the information. Read that sample contract. Proofread the final drafts and ensure you have enough copies. We've received proposals that were a copy or two short. Doesn't look good. So, I'm going to say I've had a vendor actually turn in, and when we were, he was not awarded, and when we were doing the debrief, he's reading to me section 7, paragraph 2, and he's saying everything, and I stopped him and I said, I don't have that information. He said, yes, you do. It's right here on this page. And I said, no, what I have is this. And I read it to him, and he said, well, it was supposed to be in there. And my question to him was, did you read your final before you submitted? And he did not. And so he didn't realize information was missing, and he lost a bid because of that. So again, securely bind your response. If pages get out of order, we don't know what's going on. I strongly suggest using a 3-ring binder or one of the combs to make sure those pages don't come loose, or if they do, for whatever reason, they're still in the correct order. And then securely seal envelopes and check that mailing address. I'm harping on the address, I really am, because that bothers me that we get late proposals. But again, securely sealed. I've had people come in and just hand me binders, and we can't accept those. We need them to be securely sealed because we can't open them until the deadline has arrived. So offer the price you believe is correct for the project. This is really important, guys. Don't underbid thinking, oh, you're just looking at pricing. For an RFP, we look at price, but we look at other factors too. And if you're underbid on the price and then come back and say, oh, I need a change order for this, or I did something wrong and I need to increase our cost, we're not necessarily going to give you that change order. We're not going to increase the price. So give us the price that you believe it's going to cost to do the project. Likewise, don't overprice the project thinking, oh, higher pricing means it's better. You are going to get evaluated on that price, so you will get points. Sometimes if it's really high, you might not get as many points as other proposals. And so before we jump into the successful proposal example we have, I do want to mention that you can always find our solicitations on www.rdu.com, doing business with, and I will show you that in just a moment. You will also notice that you can find them on DemandStar and NC State IPS. They will always be on rdu.com, not always on DemandStar and NC State IPS sites, but I do want to point that out for you. Okay. And before.
Corinne, can I ask you some questions?
Yes, of course you can.
Awesome. How does a person become a bidder with the Raleigh-Durham Airport?
I can show you that actually. Well, I can as soon as I change my screen.
Or
So
if it's a link, I can just, okay, perfect.
Yep. So the first thing you're going to do is go to rdu.com. And then you'll see Airport Authority right here, doing business with RDU. And this is also right here is where you can click to see what we currently have open, which is what you're going to do. And then you will see, right there, vendor registration form. You'll click that and a PDF form will come up and you can fill that out and submit it with your W-9. And you can also fill in these boxes right here and submit those. And so does that answer your question, China?
I think so.
Okay. You had another one.
Yep, I have several actually.
Yay.
Yes. There was a question about whether or not COVID vaccinations would be required for contractors. And I actually answered it in the chat that RDU is evaluating whether or not that will be a requirement going forward. It has not yet been instituted, but stay tuned.
Correct. That is correct answer. Good job, China.
You want me to answer, Chane, for Charlotte?
Yes, please. Would you?
Yes. So as of right now, there is no requirement in place for contractors of the city of Charlotte to have its employees vaccinated or submit weekly COVID testing. However, this is a fluid situation right now, and it's beyond the control of the city of Charlotte. So no city policy would prohibit you from requiring employees to be vaccinated. However, due to the uncertainty of what could be required in the future, the city of Charlotte staff cannot definitely state that there will never be a vaccination requirement. It's just there's no requirement in place at this time.
So there was a question about qualifications or experience and whether or not you had to have airport experience to do business with the airport. So Charlotte, will you guys answer that? And then I believe Chris answered it on behalf of our DU in the chat, and I'll repeat his answer after you guys do that.
Again, repeat the question. Do you have to have airport experience?
Right. When you're giving references or you're listing your previous clients, do they have to be airport clients?
Okay, so it depends upon the situation. Say in particular for the service. I'm not going to say specifically that airport experience is required. However, if you have, what probably is the best thing to look at is the size of an airport. One thing that we take into consideration, there are some airports that are small and there are some airports that are large. However, if you're talking about services like janitorial services, if you're talking about pest control services, it depends upon the type of service that you're actually seeking. So I wouldn't 100% say that you have to have airport experience. But however, consider the size of your current customers and if it's equivalent to the size of the airport that you're seeking to provide the service for. Did it answer the question?
Yes, it was a perfect answer. Chris gave a very similar answer, and he actually said that references from non-airport clients would be considered, but I agree with what you just said, is you need to consider the size of the airports that you might have, or the other clients that you might have done work with. And so now I'm going to make a shameless plug for small businesses and teaming opportunities. So if you believe that you are too small or don't have the experience to do business at the airport, that is a perfect, wonderful, awesome time to begin making partnerships with larger businesses that are, at least at the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority, required to do business with small businesses. So if you think that maybe you don't have the breadth of experience required to do a project by yourself, then that is another of the 500 reasons that you should attend pre-proposal meetings and pre-bid meetings, whether or not they have anything to do with you, because it's an opportunity to learn how we do business and also to find teaming partners for the future.
Yep. And I was going to say, China, we did have for our janitorial solicitation, we had a lot of small business vendors come in for that exact reason. And so please do that. Please, please, please come to the pre-bids.
There was another question. Go ahead, Dale.
To expand a little bit further on that particular question, the intent of the question as I took it was that we're a company that meet or exceeds the years of experience in the industry, but they did not have any particular airport references. Will that suffice? And similar answer would be, it depends on the particular service or goods that are being asked for. And if it's aviation specific where an airport reference may very well be required, then it'll state that. But in most cases, the aviation or airport experience references is not required. So again, similar to what Charlotte said, it's more important unless it specifically states that an airport reference is needed, pick a company that's similar in size will be probably the best way to respond to that.
Thanks, Bill. I have a question that I'm going to give to Charlotte first, and then I'll take it for RDU. And the question is, how does an architect firm do work with either airport? And it is an 8A firm. What would we suggest that they do? So this is for Charlotte first.
Hi, this is Crystal again. So my recommendation would still be to follow the processes. Go ahead and get your company registered. So one of the best ways that, again, when we reach out to people, we're really reaching out first to the people who are registered with the city of Charlotte. Those are the people who have the first and primary contact. with regards to the business that's going on. Anybody else that is unregistered would just continuously need to keep checking different websites to see opportunities that are out there. Again, registered under your commodity code. If you're an architect firm providing a specific service, if you're doing any type of architectural work, go ahead and get registered. When those construction projects come up, they are solicited the same way with the same process with regards to reaching out and posting solicitations. So it's no different for services for the city of Charlotte as it is for AES services, which is architectural engineering and surveying.
Thank you.
I would also add for Charlotte, if you are eligible, since you're an 8A firm, if you are eligible to get certified with the city or to become DBE certified, we would highly recommend that you look into those certifications or at least reach out to us so that we can help you determine if you'd be qualified for those certifications, because that is also a benefit when you're looking to propose on projects, especially for architectural. When we do our architectural proposals, if you're not looking to propose as a prime, we would be requiring diversity and inclusion participation. So that is one way to be a little bit more noticeable, is to be certified, because the firms that are looking to propose as primes are actively going to be looking for certified firms to participate with them on the project.
And also, just to piggyback on what you said, Michelle, that's also an opportunity if you're an architect firm doing like at a pre-bid meeting. Again, don't forget, we promote this for networking opportunities. It's an opportunity for you to come in as a sub or to form a joint partnership on somebody. So definitely attend pre-bid meetings to see if you're not strong enough, who can you work with? Maybe you're not as strong in one area, they're strong in another area, but you guys partner and do a joint venture.
Thank you. So for Raleigh-Durham, we do on-call solicitations for architects and engineers, and we recently completed and put companies on an on-call contract. So those contracts are 5 years, and so unless there's a one-off or some unforeseen situation, we'll be using the contractors that are, or the architects, engineers that are currently under contract for the next 5 years. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you are completely out for the next 5 years. I would suggest if you see building projects coming up for construction, that you become involved again with the pre-proposal meetings so that you can meet the architects and the engineers and the staff people at RDU that are engaged in it, because this 5 years, number one, will be up before you know it, but we also don't know whether the teams will stand as they were proposed over the entire 5 years. So this is just the time to start making those connections for the next on-call round. Now I want to get to our successful proposal, because one of the things that we have heard amongst both airports is that we don't know how to propose. We don't know what it's supposed to look like. So we wanted to give you something to just look at and see what we thought looked good. Again, this is from the Raleigh-Durham Airport, so this may not apply for Charlotte, but then again, it might. Corinne?
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Chine. And thank you guys for those questions. They were great. So in this proposal, we're going to go really quick because there's a lot in this proposal. As you can see, it's 117 pages, and we did redact some information, including financial information. So it was a long proposal. But the first thing we always ask for is a cover letter, and you can see we got the cover letter right here. Okay. I'm going to tell you, I felt it was a little long. I am not an evaluator. I'm never an evaluator, and quite frankly, for Raleigh-Durham, the proposal is never evaluated for criteria by the procurement department. So please keep that in mind. But for me, a 3-page cover letter is a little long. And then you'll see here we have the table of contents. These pages will match what was on their document before redaction. So please don't hold that against them. And then the other thing you guys can't see is that they had tabs in the hard copy that matched those table of contents. And if I'm remembering correctly, I believe they actually said firm overview, key staff approach. That's what the tabs were labeled. So it made it really easy for the evaluation team to find that information. And then we asked for additional information. This was for our parking and busing service staffing. So we asked for them to show us what their technology was going to be, because they have to install that technology on the buses. And so I did redact all of that information, but they did include it originally. So, and then you'll see firm overview. And the thing I really liked about this is all the sections that are listed in the table of contents, your eye is drawn to the fact that it is in a different color from the rest of the document, so you know what section you're looking at. Again, I didn't score this one. I only looked at it to make sure it was responsive, and it was. So, and then they'll reference things in there like where you can go. You'll see our key staff here. All of this information was very good. And I believe Charlotte mentioned this too. It's important to give a staffing plan and an approach plan. And that was included in this RFP and their proposal. So they also gave an organizational chart right here. We did ask for that. We don't always ask for it. However, I think it is something important to see. I recommend, if it's asked for, definitely include it and separate it out so we can easily follow it. And then they go through the job descriptions. This is all stuff we asked for. So I'm trying to go fast and still let you guys look at everything. They talked about what would each section or each job description and what that employee would do. Equal opportunity employment policy. Here is their approach. And again, they were following what was in our RFP. And China, did we include the RFP in the materials?
We did.
Okay. Yes.